I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with that, you now have the second term of President Donald Trump has officially begun. That just moments ago in Washington, D.C., not too far from where we're broadcasting to you live from today. And well, his opening speech was a little interesting. It was interesting for what it included, and it was also interesting for what it didn't include. And we'll talk about a lot of that today to try to get a good understanding of at least where things are standing as of this moment, and some ideas about where the Trump administration is going to be going. Some of the difficulties he may have, some of the challenges he may not know he has. We're going to be talking about all of that today. One of the first things he said right off the top is something that he has repeated from the beginning, and I think will really, more than just a bumper sticker, I think this is really going to underscore how he plans to govern.
During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Now, that can have a lot of ramifications, and some in ways that you may not expect. In some ways, we don't know for sure how it's going to completely play out. One of the omissions, things that he didn't say anything about today, we'll talk about here at the beginning, was the Israeli-Hamas war and the ceasefire that's going on with that. The only mention at all he gave of that was some comment about some of the hostages have now been returned, but he didn't go any further with that. But there seems to be a difference of presence of Trump already, because we know that the ceasefire deal itself is something that the Biden administration tried to get done for a long, long time. Probably the better part of the last 6 to 9 months of that war. They were constantly talking about they wanted an immediate ceasefire. They were going to insist upon it, all this kind of stuff, but they never did it. The President Biden and his team was never willing to use the leverage that the United States had, which we lamented on this show many times, that there was plenty of leverage if only he had the political courage and willingness to do so. But he never did, until President Trump sent his guy, I think his name is Steve Cliffe, along with the Biden administration's senior guy, for some late negotiations. And apparently, according to all the media, the Trump administration's Wycliffe put a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, twisted his arm, as they said it, and emphasized that this will get done, and it'll get done before the inauguration, which turned out to be Sunday. So just yesterday, that's what he was saying then. And so Trump showed that he was willing to use leverage. And of course, we don't know yet what he did or what that leverage was, what he said, what he promised, what he threatened. We just don't know. All we know is that Netanyahu didn't want to do it. He did not desire to do that. He was tried to put it off as much as possible, but already Trump came in and said, no, this is going to happen. So it appears that Trump is actually meaning what he says about putting America first. So if Trump has calculated it's in his interest and in America's interest for that deal to get done, then it got done. Now, the question is going to be coming next, now that Trump is back to the commander-in-chief again. What is he going to do next? Because Israel cannot fight its wars unless it has a near nonstop flow of ammunition from the United States, spare parts and other kinds of military support. That's the only way that they have been able to carry on this extraordinary multi-front war for the majority since April 2023. I'm sorry, since October 2023. So is Trump going to now require Netanyahu to come to a negotiated settlement to end these wars? Is he going to allow him to continue fight? Because Netanyahu came out shortly after the deal was struck and said that we reserve the right to go back on full operation or full offensive to defeat Hamas after the hostages have been released. So obviously that's going to be on the minds of the Palestinian side and of the Hamas people when they say, hey, sure, we'll give all the hostages back. And they know that that's their last point of leverage. They don't have any military leverage at all. But we've already seen, by the way, just how unsuccessful the Israeli side has been, which hopefully will give them pause to realize that the military instrument is not going to succeed. It's not going to give them the peace that they desire. It's not going to give them any kind of a victory, because what we've seen from the scenes of the celebration in the Palestinian areas is not merely that they've been happy, but that a lot of these guys came out of their tunnel systems. They're wearing their uniforms. They went on a parade, an actual parade, which demonstrated that they were never defeated by the Israeli side. And it is hard to believe. I wish I had time to get this together. We'll certainly do it in a previous show or a subsequent show. I saw a drone strike or a drone video footage of what the Palestinian areas inside the Gaza Strip look like today during the first full day of the ceasefire. And it is a literal moonscape. It is just unbelievable. I know you've seen a lot of them here, but this particular version, which I'll find later on, it was just amazing. And then when you compare that with the fact that despite all of that destruction, the Hamas side still continued to maintain its viability. That just shows you the limitations of the use of power. And if it can't accomplish the political objective you want to set, then there's no point in doing it, because now then, in many ways, the Israeli side is worse off because they've suffered at least 400 of their men dead and thousands of others that have been wounded, and they're no closer to quelling their enemies. Yes, and they can certainly say, well, the body count is out of proportion. For the Israeli side, it's tens of thousands for the Hamas side. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference who's got the higher body count. It only matters who's got the political upper hand. How is this war going to be solved? And right now, it's definitely against the Israeli side, because they basically spent their bolt, as some call it. And so the question is going to be, what is Trump going to do? Is Trump going to underwrite that continued on forward? Because he goes on to say, well, in fact, let me not go on to say, that leads directly into one of the next quotes that we have from him, where Trump's talking about how he's going to focus on America first, but on especially with money, when it comes to spending money, he is going to prioritize America.
We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people.
Now, that leads to the second thing that Trump didn't mention. One of the surprises, I got to say, that took me by surprise, is he didn't mention the Russia-Ukraine war at all. And that's taken up a lot of space ever since he's gotten elected. A lot of people have been asking about that. He's been talking a lot about it, setting up a meeting with Putin, all that kind of stuff. But it didn't garner a single direct mention in this entire speech. But it did. I think that you can see it's as an indirect mention here, where he keeps talking other foreign countries' border issues, and that almost certainly includes both Ukraine and Israel. So if the Israeli side is thinking, well, we'll just wait till we get our hostages back and then we'll go back on the offensive, they may have to recalibrate that, because it is far from certain that Trump would enable that, because Trump has to give approval for it. Because Israel cannot continue this war and go back on a high-speed war if they don't know that they're going to get a nonstop support of American weapons and ammunition. It is definitely required. They simply don't have the capacity to wage war at the level that they have for the past 16 months without a nonstop support from the United States. Trump seems to be firing across the bow, America first, and we're not going to be spending a lot of money on defending other countries' borders. And of course, that then leads to the next one, which is the Russia-Ukraine war. And what is he going to do for Zelensky? Because he's definitely, there is no evidence that he's going to continue to give money there either, which is even higher percentage and higher dollar figures than what the Biden administration has been doing. And of course, as we pointed out over and over, and many on Trump's national security team, some of whom I'm aware of, are very much in the same category and camp that we are. And if they recognize that it's a dead end situation and it's a no win for the Trump administration, he is very unlikely to just keep shoveling money because it's a political expediency, because it's easy to do, and just keep supporting either Jerusalem or Kiev. I doubt that he's going to do either one of those things. So I'm sure Zelensky and his team were paying a great deal of attention to this discussion, to the speech, to find out what is the message for us. Well, if they're watching for a message, they obviously didn't get the direct one, but I think the subtle message is pretty clear that the ways of the past administration are over. The blank check days are over, and there is a termination date on this at some point. And as we've been talking here, that is absolutely in America's interest to do so. It is in Trump's interest to bring this war to a conclusion as fast as possible. Because it's an unwinnable situation, and Trump is never been one to pay more to lose, as we talked about before. That's not something that he seems intent to do, and I think that by making that statement here, I'm not sure why he didn't take the opportunity to make a more direct statement. Maybe he just wants to keep his options open. I'm not sure, but that seems to be a pretty clear message for both Ukraine and for Israel. Then moving things closer to home, he also talked about stuff that because what he's not going to do internationally, he's not just going to keep helping other people's borders, but he wants to help America border. And again, keeping it consistent with the America first, this is what he said he wants to focus his military power on.
And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
Okay, so this is a good news and maybe some concerning news situation. Of course, I'm all about the United States and its Department of Defense, as opposed to the Department of Offense, actually defending our borders and focusing on that, as opposed to doing all this stuff all over the world and funding other people's wars and trying to do regime change operations all over the place. I really hope that he focuses on the border. And I'm also an advocate of using whatever legal powers to the president to keep anybody coming in our country that's not legally able to do so. Whatever kinds of immigration policies the U.S., the government, and as well as the Congress and the White House, whatever decisions are made in terms of, who can come in, who can't, how many, all this stuff, that's all fair game. People can have different opinions on that, but at the end of the day, if we're a genuine democracy, then people have their say, and then a decision is made, laws are passed, and then that becomes the laws of the land. And then it's the executive branch's responsibility to enforce the laws. The legislative branch sets them, the executive branch executes them. So if whatever the laws are that says here's who can come in legally, here's who can't, then it's the administration's responsibility to use whatever means legally that it can to enforce that. So we should not have, any version of open borders where anyone who desires to could come in, no matter whether it's legal or illegal. So I'm good with that. What troubles me, though, is he continued to talk about elsewhere in here that he's going to talk label the drug cartels as a foreign terrorist organization. That's a bit concerning to me, because that opens the door for the possibility that was discussed in a lot of conservative circles, both before and after the election, that they said, hey, what a great idea if we use U.S. military power to strike the cartels inside of Mexico. That is a bad idea. Let me just tell you that I'll just categorically be against that. Now, I know many of those people who are for it say, well, yeah, they've been operating with impunity behind the Mexican lines, so somebody needs to go in and do something. That is a foreign country, And if we just wantonly go in there and say on our southern border, hey, we don't really care about your government there, we're going to go ahead and take action here. What's categorically to stop any other country who may have personnel or someone who's an enemy to their state in our borders just coming in murdering them, whether it's with a drone assassination, a missile, sending personnel, whatever, and saying, hey, you did it, you said it's fine, so you went to another country and attacked in there because that's what you thought it was to make your country safe, so we'll do the same thing inside your country, whoever they are. And it'll, other than just saying, well, because we're bigger and stronger, so no, you can't, but we can. You see where this is going down a slippery slope. And especially as you get stronger adversaries out there, then the possibility rises that they may one day say, we can, so we will. You don't want that to be the standard, just who has power to do something, who can't. You want to have a rule of law. And that's why border security is important, because we have power and control over what comes into our country, to include any kind of illegal drugs. So you want to fight that fight at the border. But here's a bigger issue, in my view. The moral issue and the right and wrong issue is enough to me to why we shouldn't do that, even though we acknowledge that there are nefarious things happening in our country because of these cartels here. Without question, organized crime is a problem in our country as well, emanating from Mexico. But how we conduct it is important. If we use military power and go against the cartels and literally kill them and blow stuff up and shoot people in Mexico, you're basically declaring all out war on Mexico or on the cartels. And you don't want to get into a fight with the cartels, because we know for sure they have a number of assets in our country, and they have people that are already on this side of the border. We know that. We know that it happens. We don't know who all they are, because they make it their business to make sure no one finds out. And if you get into a shooting war with them, these people have shown conclusively they're not afraid of anyone, and they will strike back. You can count on it. They're not going to just take it in the teeth and do nothing about it. You could literally be opening up an internal war, basically, between the cartels, and that is a lose-lose proposition. It doesn't increase our national security. It does increase our insecurity, and almost certainly would make the possibilities of terrorism rise, because they're going to take action. That's their modus operandi. That's part of the cartel wars that they have with each other or with the Mexican state. Just look at what the Mexican military and political elite are suffering in their own country, because they are taking on the cartels. And if we think that same kind of thing wouldn't happen here, we're playing a dangerous game. So I hope that's not what Trump has in mind when he's talking about this, and that he doesn't go down that path. We'll hope so. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt here and watch very closely to see what happens after this. Next thing he talked about, though, was the military itself. And he talked about some of the things mentality-wise he's going to change, and then some of the things he's going to focus on. And again, here, some things good and some things we're going to have to watch for.
And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into.
Okay, now this one's actually, at least it could be almost all good, depending on how it's done. By getting rid of, what so-called woke policies and DEI and all this stuff, they have to guard against going too far, that they don't inadvertently actually take advantage of any kind of category of people. He said during there that he's not going to make any distinction between race, religion, creed, that kind of stuff. I hope that's exactly the way it turns out. If you're fair and equitable to everybody, and it doesn't matter any race, gender, creed, anything else. Everybody gets a fair shake, and there's this one standard for everybody. That's a good thing, because there needs to be one standard. It needs to be a high standard in the military, because their objective is to create the best fighting force it can be, not to do what's politically convenient or politically popular, if doing so lessens the quality of the force overall. If they focus on that the outcome is the most important thing, then that's a good thing. So I'm for that. I'm also for him talking about he wants to make the military as strong as possible. And that goes back to some of the things that Pete Hegseth said, the likely incoming Secretary of Defense, that he said Trump told him he wanted to bring forth this warrior ethos, war fighting capabilities, raise the standards, focus on the defense of the homeland, the land and the skies, the borders, that kind of thing. If he does that, that's also a really good thing. Also, part of that is that they want to have this best fighting force. Now, what that means is, what it should mean is not just let's increase the defense budget, because the way we've been spending money in the defense budget for decades has been just horrible and just a complete disaster. I personally observed it, how devastating it is when you don't have high quality and good leaders at certain levels that set achievable standards inside the military. I'm not even talking about tactical stuff, but like the development of a future force and modernization, etc. We've wasted billions upon billions of dollars on completely and utter failed policies and programs that were known to be flawed from the beginning, and they continued going on. That's one of the things that needs to be changed above all. I think that we need a whole new level of leadership in here. And if Trump is focused on creating the best fighting force, then listen, I'll just flat categorically say it. If it doesn't at least include a meaningful culling of a lot of these old, tired leaders in the Defense Department, and that means uniformed and civilian too, they're going to have to, send to early retirement a number of folks, or nothing's going to happen, because the status quo will continue to exert its force, and they will do everything they can just to keep everything going the way it always has. They don't want to make any big changes. They don't want anyone else to tell them how to make changes. They want to do it what they want. They want to continue to replicate their own kind, so they want to make sure that the next leaders are the same ones that they are, people they can control, people they can count on to just maintain the status quo. That is going to be disaster, because then there won't be any reform. There won't be anything. They'll just ask for more money. That's what they've been doing. That's what they're good at. That's why they're in their positions, because they're supported from the outside, because they can be counted on to just get more money. So they always talk about all these problems and all these dangers and everything else, and talk about how we don't have enough money and we have to get more of X, Y, and Z. But the X, Y, and Z aren't the things that we actually need to fight and win wars right now. We need somebody who's going to come in and say, all right, what do we need to make the force better? That actually has production, like the future combat systems that I mentioned in the early 2000s. I was actually working in that program, and I saw firsthand inside the program the just absolute corruption of the senior Army leaders, and the terrible capacity of them to understand how things are supposed to work, and the willing to make the hard decisions to make them work, and to hold people accountable when they fail. You reward people when they do good. That's appropriate. But what we have lost is holding anyone accountable for when they fail. And I'm talking demonstrably fail, like the future combat systems, which was, I think, from 1999, when the concept was first started, until 2009, when the program was canked. We lost at least $20 billion and produced nothing. And yet I watched myself firsthand how a lot of these generals got promotions, got these big medals pinned on their chest for failing. It was shocking to me how that happened, but that's what the system does. And that's why you have to get it cold, because they'll keep doing the same thing. So if Trump wants to make the military better, he's going to have to start with that. One of the other things he said in that same little clip there, which I also was optimistic about, is he said he wants the objective of the force to be getting out of dumb wars. So that means a lot of these, so hopefully it means a lot of these wars that we've been fighting and military deployments that we have, which have no relation to American national security. He'll be ending those, ending all the flow of money and deployments that is necessary to keep those things going, to keep them, serviced, logistics, etc., for stuff that's completely antithetical to our national security. It doesn't even help us. It just keeps us at vulnerability in places that potentially get us sucked into other wars. Let's end all that. Let's bring our folks home. And then let's focus them on the actual war fighting things, which he said he wanted to do, which is the wars that we may have to fight. But he said one of the chief things is so that we don't have to fight any of those wars. And that's the best kind of national defense, is to have such a strong, powerful military that you don't have to use it, because any would-be adversary would see, well, it would be counterproductive to attack the United States, so we're not going to. That's the best way to use your national defense. And I hope that that's exactly how it translates into, and not like some actually want to do. And I'm talking about inside the military industrial complex, or the so-called establishment political elite, the foreign policy elite. What they secretly want to do is to build up the military so they can use it, and so they can use it to bully other people. That is all that's going to do, is get us into more wars, and has lead to the level right now where our military is far less capable than it should be. We'll see how it works out at that. The one area that I'll say was concerning during this speech. Now, Trump, I said he didn't hardly at all mention the Israel-Hamas situation or any of the wars in the Middle East. Didn't say anything, even indirectly or even categorically, about the Russia-Ukraine war. But one of the very few foreign policy issues that he did mention was Panama.
Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
Okay, yeah. Okay, first of all, China's not running the Panama Canal. Panama is running the Panama Canal, and there are some Hong Kong, not Chinese per se, Hong Kong companies that are operating some of the locks that are in there. And to date, no American ship has been denied passage. American ships don't get some kind of different deal than everybody else gets. There's no evidence of that. The Panama Canal has been running for a long time. So the Panamanian government has been very clear about saying this is not being run by China. It's being run by us, and it's going to continue to be run by us because that's the treaty that we signed, et cetera. And some in the Republican circles have said, yeah, but that treaty also has some provisions that if it's being compromised or something, then we can go in militarily and take it. And that provision exists, but having a Hong Kong company run the thing at the behest of the Panamanian government does not qualify, because it's just, if you don't like the prices you're being charged, or if you don't like the name, the nationality of the people that are running a certain business inside of that, because there's no military power from Hong Kong or from China or anybody else. There's no military power involved in that. So ergo, they don't have any power to do anything. So let's don't get stupid. And because I don't know what he means by take it back. That could mean many other things. He could mean, well, that's just a negotiating task to get lower prices. I don't know. I mean, if he comes out with something like that, then I guess if that's good for the American economy, then okay, it's as good as long as that doesn't require and turn into a physical taking of the territory, because that would be very bad. That would be very, very bad, antithetical to our interest, and it would raise the fear of America to adversaries all over the globe. And I know some people will think, oh, that's good. That's a good thing. They need to be afraid of us. That's the wrong kind of fear. The fear they should have of us is like, if we attack you for no reason, then we're going to have our ass handed to us. That's good. I want them to have that fear. That's why I'm for a strong national defense. But they shouldn't be afraid that we're going to come and take something because we can. The reason why, there's a couple. The morality, again, is top, and that by itself is enough. It's immoral to do. We've always stood for the international rules-based order. That means we have to follow the international rules-based order. That's something that's fair and equitable for everyone, if we want to defend that. And if we want to just say, nope, we actually don't care about that, we're just going to go into a might makes right deal, and we have the most might, so we're going to take it. Then you've created a fear of us from others that causes them to seek ways to harm us out of fear that they're going to be next on the list. That's why it's bad. We can't get into a situation to where we create unnecessary fear that somebody feels like if they don't take preemptive action against us, they're going to be next. That is the opposite of the kind of fear you want, because that doesn't keep you safer. That increases the likelihood that you're going to get attacked. And so it would be foolish to go down that path. And I certainly hope that the president doesn't do that. We'll have to see how that's going to work out. So there's still a lot of parts to go. There's a number of hearings that have still not been scheduled among now President Trump's national security team. We'll see how all that's going to go. We've had the Secretary of State designate, the Secretary of Defense designate have gone. We're still waiting for Tulsi Gabbard, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and a handful of others as well. I am aware of some appointments that are going to be made that have been decided, but they haven't been made public yet. Some of those are very good. I actually we'll have some interesting news to share with you on this channel once some things are made public. Some things are really good. And so I hope when you get a lot of these good people in some of these positions, that can overall help to educate the president and to make decisions that are good for him, good for our country, and good for our international image around the world. So a lot of things are possible with this, with the President Trump coming back in. He's definitely entering this situation a whole lot better than he did in 2017, because as you may know, maybe you don't, I don't know, but when he won in the 2016 election, he probably, by all accounts, didn't think he was going to win. So he really hadn't taken a lot of the steps necessary to have a team in place on Inauguration Day. They were prepared for that this time, he and many of his allies. And so they have done a lot to prepare. And now then you have a lot of things already teed up and ready to go. He's got a lot better people at the beginning. You may recall, like some of his advisors, he had, John Bolton was there at a certain point. You had General Mattis is Secretary of Defense, the Rex Tillerson, I think it was, the Secretary of State, guys who were definitely not on his side, who definitely did not have his worldview, and he had to constant fighting from within from the day one. Now then, at a lot of these key positions, he has definite allies on his side. A lot of this stuff has been thought through. I have a number of friends who are part of this process here, and they're very optimistic about how things can go. So I'm going to remain optimistic and hope that we have nothing but good news to report to you as things continue to evolve under the new administration of President Donald J. Trump now in the second. But that's all we got for you today. We're going to continue letting you know what things are going to happen later on and how these things manifest. And also later today, I think it's 3:30 p.m., we're going to talk about some advances on the front line and some changes in the battle line. That the Ukraine army is in increasing danger of collapse. They are in the process of collapsing already. There's been a number of advances in some very key areas just in the last 24 hours. And it seems like I say that every time, because every day there's more and more progress on the Russian side. Definitely tune in today. You're not going to want to miss this, especially now that we know Trump is in, because this is going to have direct implications of what he's going to do in his negotiations. Tune in at 3:30 today. We'll look forward to seeing you on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.